Straight ahead on WBKB, an arrest has been made following a bomb threat against the Michigan Capitol building.
Plus, the State Health Department aims for a March 1st return to in-person learning for all students, and spring semester is here at Alpena Community College.
You're watching Thunder Bay News Network. WBKB News at 6 starts now.
This is WBKB News at 6. An in-depth look at news, weather, and sports. From hard-hitting news stories to local events, we're there with coverage you can count on. You're watching WBKB News at 6.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Sherry Stewart.
And I'm Tyler Cruz. An arrest has been made following the bomb threat to the Michigan Capitol building Thursday morning. According to the Director of Operations at the Capitol building, the threat was received around 6:45 a.m. Thursday, and the information was turned over to Michigan State Police, who began working to clear the grounds. The building was deemed safe a few hours later, and the investigation remained ongoing until earlier today. The MSP says they have arrested and charged 48-year-old Michael Verone with felony terrorism charges. Verone was apprehended by officers without incident outside his home in Charlotte, which is right outside of Lansing. He is currently lodged at the Lansing City Jail. The MSP said Verone reportedly also threatened to kill a state representative back in December when he left voicemails to Representative Cynthia Johnson threatening harm to her and her family.
The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced new guidance Friday for schools to safely offer in-person instruction. The state's goal is to have all Michigan school districts offer an in-person learning option no later than March 1st and earlier if possible. The state's chief medical executive, Dr. Janae Caldoon, asked that every school district work with their local health department to identify the safest possible way to provide in-person learning.
Things like appropriate spacing of desks, wearing masks, a cohorting of students, and adequate ventilation significantly decrease the risk of virus spread in schools, and is how many students across the state are already engaging in in-person learning today.
Vaccination of teachers and other school staff will begin by Monday, January 11th.
An Alpena man has been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct and 1 count of accosting a child for immoral purposes, according to the Michigan State Police Alpena Post. 32-year-old Tony Lance Paris was arrested after the victim's mother disclosed the abuse to Alpena County Child Protective Services. Police say the alleged abuse began in 2018. Paris was arrested after his interview with officers and was held at the Alpena County Jail on a $100,000 cash bond.
The investigation pretty much lasted throughout the day, interviewing the victim, any witnesses, and then eventually the suspect in the case, who was, after his interview, was arrested and lodged in the Alpena County Jail.
Paris has pleaded not guilty and through a waiver of his arraignment will appear in court on January 27th.
Well, several branches of law enforcement apprehended a dangerous person from Barton City this week. The 81st District Court in Alpena arraigned Richard Couts Jr. of Barton City on January 6th. Authorities say Couts held his girlfriend at knife point on Christmas Day and stole money from her to buy drugs. He also physically assaulted her several times in the following days. On January 5th, Couts demanded his girlfriend drive him to Oscoda Township to help him kill someone there. She managed to escape with the car during a stop at a liquor store. From there, she ran to the Alpena County Sheriff's Office to report him to the authorities. Meanwhile, Couts got help from another person to make it to Oscoda. He managed to threaten his target, but was soon apprehended by multiple agencies. In Couts' arraignment, he was charged with numerous felonies, including assault with a dangerous weapon, armed robbery, unlawful imprisonment, and multiple counts of domestic violence.
In lighter news, spring semester at Alpena Community College begins Monday, January 11th, and many students will start the semester remotely. Students in more lab-intensive programs will start in-person learning this coming Monday, while students in other programs will remain remote until the 18th. For the last 2 semesters, the community college has been working remotely due to the pandemic, But while the latest State Department of Health guidelines don't mandate the college to go this route, ACC administration says they wanted to remain cautious for the safety of its student body and employees.
Our thought was, and this came from kind of a broad base of our faculty and administration and staff, was it would be smart to the extent we could to create a little bit of a kind of a buffer, or you might say a quarantine type environment from January, the holidays.
Dr. McMaster says while spring registration is still ongoing, the pandemic has caused the college to see a slight decline in enrollment, but says the school is holding steady, unlike other community colleges throughout the state.
What we've seen and what we're seeing statewide and nationally is the folks that are most affected by COVID are community college students, people who are working poor, who are trying to part-time move along. They're the ones that are feeling it, the challenges the most, and that affects enrollment.
And it's not too late to register for classes. For information on registration, you can visit discover.alpenaacc.edu.
Well, the city of Alpena will be shelling out a bit more money to cover road repairs in 2021. The city recently renewed its contract with Everett Goodrich Trucking to provide hot mixed asphalt patching. The company says costs for some materials are up from 1 year ago, leading to an overall contract increase of 2.69%, or nearly $2,300. The trucking company is the only company in the area to provide the service, causing the city to have no other source to compare costs. Well, there is more news ahead for you here on WBKB. Coming up, one Grand Rapids organization is helping to lighten the load for hospitals.
Know how long these above normal temperatures and dry weather will last a bit later in the program.
Thanks for that, Ellie. A Grand Rapids-based behavioral health organization has partnered with the state of Michigan to address a critical statewide need for individuals with behavioral health concerns who also have COVID-19. WBKB's Stephanie Minichi has more.
Pine Rest Christian Mental Health Services opened a new inpatient and residential psychiatric services unit, helping people cope during the pandemic. According to the organization's vice president and CEO, Bob Nijkamp, their mission is to help people who may harm themselves or others. Their additional focus is to help patients who are unable to access general psychiatric units around the state.
Pine Rest worked quickly with the state of Michigan with support from a grant from the state of Michigan to open up to 40 special care unit beds for Michiganders with both an acute psychiatric illness and have a positive COVID diagnosis.
Nijkamp says their research team identified a second epidemic related to behavioral health issues and COVID-19.
Things that produce mental illness are isolation, increased substance abuse, increased stress or anxiety. Well, COVID has produced all of those factors, and so we're starting to see the numbers rise as it relates to behavioral health issues.
Nijkamp provided a list of resources for those in Northeast Michigan.
In Northeast Michigan, obviously your county health department and potentially the community mental health agency within your counties would be a first source of information in terms of referrals for services.
Nijkamp says Pine Rest accepts referrals from departments and agencies in Northeast Michigan. He strongly encourages the public to get vaccinated and says to visit the Centers for Disease Control for more information on vaccinations. In Alpena, Stephanie Minichi, WBKB News.
In Health Watch this evening, our blood pressure meds safe for COVID patients and a possible breakthrough in MS. Elise Preston has some of the day's top health stories.
Researchers in Germany say they have developed a vaccine that delays and reduces the severity of a multiple sclerosis-like disease in mice. They believe their finding could one day help create personalized MS treatments for people. A new study finds common blood pressure medications are safe for patients hospitalized with COVID-19. There was early concern the medications could make COVID more severe, but researchers found no evidence of that during an international trial with more than 150 patients. And while researchers around the world work to develop even more COVID vaccines, there is push among some scientists to also find the medications that shorten the infectious period of the virus. They believe millions of lives could be saved by reducing the time people are contagious with the deadly virus. That's a look at some of the day's top health stories. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Well, coming up on WBKB News, Ellie Morrison is next with your 7-day forecast, plus the photo of the day. Stay tuned.
.com.
Yeah, there's some really interesting photography
It
right
is
there.
very nice.
Well, don't worry, everybody. We have your sports fix coming up next. But first, we go to Jake Vandenbroek with a preview. Jake, what's going on?
Yeah, Tyler, so we got two former Detroit Tigers pitchers. They've been accused with pine tar. More on that story. Plus, he's staying. Jim Harbaugh has signed a new contract to stay with the Michigan Wolverines football team. We're going to break it down for you up next in sports.
And you can read more about our broadcast stories and get the scoop on other news items online.
Just visit WBKB11.com for sports, weather, and news updates anytime, day or night.
Or be sure to check us out on our Facebook page and Twitter handle at WBKB11.
And that's all we have for you this evening. Be sure to catch us back here tonight at 11 with Stephanie Manici. Have a great evening.